But it is incumbent upon every one of us, myself, yourselves, and everybody in the community that cares about the institutions of civil society to do what we can to protect them. I think we're very fortunate in that our Constitution, the basic law, actually enshrines not only the capitalist way of life, but the rights and freedoms and the rule of law. And this is because Deng Xiaoping had the vision of doing so. And why did he do this? Why did he bother to enshrine these rights and freedoms and the rule of law in our Constitution? I think he did so because he saw very clearly that it is only by doing so that he can maintain Hong Kong's long-term prosperity and stability, and also ensure that Hong Kong, because of our unique characteristics, can help in the economic growth of our country and in the modernization of our country, and in helping our country to become a responsible, respected member of the international community. I haven't dictated what is in the basic law. You haven't dictated what is in the basic law. It is there because the central government leaders decided that was the best way of maintaining sustainable economic development. If we take a look at what has happened to Hong Kong in the 11 years since reunification, I think most of you will be aware of the fact that we have moved extremely slowly on introducing universal suffrage, notwithstanding the fact that the basic law actually promises to the people of Hong Kong that after the year 2007, the people of Hong Kong can decide on their own how fast to move towards universal suffrage. If you look at the history of the development of representative government in Hong Kong, it is true that we have only embarked down this road in the last 30 to 40 years. First, with the introduction of district councils and the election of district councillors, followed by the introduction of selected members of the legislature being elected through functional constituencies. And it wasn't until the year 1991 that we actually had 10 members of the legislature elected through geographical constituencies. Now, you are aware of the fact, I hope you are, but if you are not, please read it up. At the moment, our legislature comprises 60 members. 30 members returned through functional constituencies, and 30 members returned through geographical constituencies. Now, I want to discuss with you why is it that today, as we prepare to move in a gradual and orderly manner towards universal suffrage, why there is a widespread feeling that, that functional constituencies cannot remain forever and that they should be abolished. There are at the moment actually only 28 functional constituencies because the Labour functional constituency returned 3 seats, okay? Whereas all the other functional constituencies each only have the right to elect 1 member, irrespective of the size of the electorate. Now let me examine for you why functional constituencies are inconsistent with the universally accepted definition of universal suffrage. The basic law makes it very clear that 2 very important international conventions governing civil, political, social, and economic rights would apply to Hong Kong on the establishment of the Hong Kong SAR government. There's one particular international convention on civil and political rights. And in Article 25 of this convention, there is actually a definition of universal suffrage. That definition is accepted by democracies all over. And Hong Kong has well, at least central government, on behalf of Hong Kong, has acceded to this particular international convention. And Article 25 actually defines universal suffrage as fair and equal. Now, you may ask, what is meant by fair and equal? Well, fair and equal applies to both the right to stand for election, but also applies to the right to be elected. So the right to stand and the right to be elected is equally important. And if you have one without the other, it is not universal suffrage as defined by international law. And central government has agreed that that international convention, as I said, will apply to Hong Kong. Now, let us look at our current election system. You know that the chief executive is elected by a small committee of 800, divided into 4 sectors. But the way the 800 members are returned is actually based on how functional constituency members elect members of the legislature. You are probably not aware of the fact that of this 800, 550 of them are actually elected by members of the functional constituency. Furthermore, of the 28 functional constituencies, varying in size from over 10,000 members to some as small as 144 organizations. Nevertheless, a constituency as large as, for example, the teaching profession, which is the largest, only has the right to nominate one person to the legislature. But a very, very small functional constituency, like, say, the agriculture and fisheries or the insurance sector, also returns only one person. Now, you may ask yourself, is that fair and equal? Furthermore, you are probably not aware of the fact that functional constituency members are not all individuals. Some are individuals, like, say, the teaching profession, certified public accountants, doctors, nurses, social workers. So every qualified social worker, every qualified teacher has a right to elect the member that will represent that particular profession in the Legislative Council. But there are a number of functional constituencies, like, say, the insurance sector, the agriculture and fisheries sector, where the individuals, those practicing, for example, as insurance-approved, qualified insurance agents, they do not have the right to vote. Why? Because the vote is only given to a corporation, to an organization. So if you were a major tycoon in Hong Kong and you control many companies, you actually have the right to dictate who will be, as it were, elected to the legislature in a dozen or so companies, depending on how many companies are actually under your control. Now that, again, is hardly fair. Why is it that some people only have one vote, whereas some other people can have 2 votes, 3 votes, or a dozen votes? Now, a year or so ago, when the central government handed down to the people of Hong Kong 2 dates for universal suffrage, that is, election of the chief executive on the basis of one man, one vote in the year 2017, and election of all 60 members of the legislature in the year 2020. The 3 persons who came down from central government to explain this decision of the MPC to the people of Hong Kong, amongst the arguments that they advanced, justifying the retention of functional constituencies, was this argument that functional constituencies represented balanced participation and, in fact, included all those who made a significant contribution to Hong Kong's GDP growth.